Siftpop podcast is recorded in front of a live internet audience.
Live from a bunker in the heart of the Ozarks. The podcast that can talk about pirates and still not be rated R. It's Siftpop.
Well, thanks for tuning in, everybody. It was good talk.
We'll be back next week. Welcome to Siftpop, streaming live on Mixlr every Friday afternoon or available to download later in your podcast feed. Unless, of course, you're a patron.
Patrons get perks.
Patrons get those perks. Woo. I'm Aaron Dicer from YourMovieFriend.com. I'm also joined by Andrew Ormsby from Flick Freaks.
Ahoy.
Every week we'll be joined by a pop culture guru to chat about movies, television, and whatever else from the pop culture universe is on our minds. Unless it's like this week, where it's just the two of us.
What did I say last time? It was like so intimate and and I got really weird. I got really weird with it, but
you made it really weird.
My heart was in the right place.
You went to a Pete Holmes place. You made it weird. Thanks for showing up, guys. We're going to have a blast today. It is my birthday, by the way.
Happy birthday.
Yes, this is the day of my birth.
35.
Thank you. That's very kind. I actually don't mind. I'm actually 42 today. And I enjoy every single year for what it is. I think that's part of how you stay young. You know, is years are just numbers, and you just kind of do what you do through your life, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, you'll be to 42 someday. You'll still be awesome.
In
right?
12 years, yeah.
Yeah.
11 years, yeah.
So today is my day of birth.
Yeah.
What should I do on my birthday?
You should watch your Sift Shames.
No, that's true.
You should. You know what you should do? You should do one of my favorite pastimes. Go to Dickerson Park Zoo. Just have a little walk around.
Yeah.
What I like to do, if I just need a day where I chill out, put on an audiobook, just walk around, look at animals.
We don't have a giraffe ready to give birth at our zoo, though, so it's totally not internet famous.
There's probably like an emu or something. Laid a few eggs.
An emu? I'm there, man.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate you joining us. Andrew mentioned the Sift Shame. That was part of the patron pre-show today. I listed 5 movies, 4 of which I had not seen, and there were some doozies. So if you support the podcast, that'll show up right in your supporter podcast feed, and you can check it out there. We are going to eventually review Baywatch and the new Pirates. We'll, of course, do our buried treasure and a Sift quest, but let's start with some Do We Care?
Every single week, I scour the internet to find out what is going on in the entertainment world, and I pick 3 topics for us to discuss, and we must decide whether or not we care about them or not. But this week, instead of a Do We Care, we are starting off with a We Care Deeply, as Roger Moore, a.k.a. one of the most famous James Bonds ever, has passed away at the age of 89.
Yeah, what was he known? And you may not know, and that's fine, because I don't know. But do you know, is he known for anything outside of doing Bond?
Probably. Forgive me. It's just I'm such a huge Bond guy. That's
right.
the only thing I associate
I'm the same
with.
way. I'm totally the same way. I just wondered if you'd looked anything up.
I know. Just the 7 Bond movies that he was in are the ones that I know of. So
yeah, it's always great to remember people when they pass, and I think that's one of the beautiful things that you can take from the rough moment for their family and the situation or whatever, is just to kind of remember that they put something into the world that people love, and that's cool, and that's that's something all of us can aspire to. Just put something out into the world that people love. Yeah,
exactly. It's super horrible because Moonraker, Man with a Golden Gun, Octopussy, Spy Who Loved Me, All Up for Your Eyes Only. I'm forgetting a few, but I loved Roger Moore's Bonds because he was such a wildly different Bond than any other that had come before him.
Yeah.
Because, Connery was, he was misogynistic, as they all are, but he was, very serious and debonair, whereas I almost said Tim Allen. And
Tim Allen as James Bond would be amazing.
But no, Roger
He's
Moore
got time on his hands now that his show's been canceled.
I guess it got picked up by a different network.
Did they?
Yeah. But
let me guess, Fox?
Yeah.
Yeah, I figured.
That's what I've heard anyway. Don't know if that's confirmed. That's not a Do We Care.
Okay.
But I liked Roger Moore because he was they were the comedic James Bonds, and they weren't ashamed of that.
Timothy Dalton,
yeah. Thank you so much. But then you got into like Pierce Brosnan and Daniel Craig, and they went back to the more serious. So the only outlier in that is Roger Moore, and I love those Bond movies so much.
Yeah. The other one, and I'm not sure if it's in your list, but the other place we want to send our hearts and prayers out, obviously, is to Zack Snyder's family for everything that they've been going through since March.
Yep. Do you want to just lead right into that then?
Did you have that as well?
Yeah, I had that in there as well. So
it's one of those things where, I look at the news, and obviously it's all you can do is just feel. Just feel for them and what they're going through. And I've actually been really impressed knowing the vitriol that people put on him and the movies he makes.
Was heading his way.
I have been really impressed.
Yeah.
And that actually brightens my day a lot, because we think of our culture as being so negative.
Mm-hmm.
And I could be wrong. I'm sure it exists.
Yeah.
But I did not see anyone in my Twitter feed or anywhere else that took that opportunity to say something insensitive or bring up the movies or whatever. So I've really taken some encouragement from that. I like that we can be human to each other,
Yeah. For those who don't know what we're talking about, Zack Snyder, who's the director of like Batman vs Superman and the upcoming Justice League, he had a death in his family. His daughter passed away, unfortunately. And
it's not she committed suicide, and I know that's that adds a whole nother level of difficulty,
horribleness, and I've had family members who have committed suicide, and it's horrible. So my thoughts go out to Zack Snyder. It's a child, so I'll never understand what that's like.
Yeah.
So, but
I can't imagine.
Yeah.
So yeah, our thoughts, prayers, all that with them. And what they're going through. And I think Joss Whedon is stepping in to finish off post-production on Justice League.
Would it seem in bad taste if we were to discuss that element of it?
No.
Okay.
It's just, at that point, it's news.
Yeah.
I think it's exciting news. I love Joss Whedon.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be interesting. I think they're done, though, with all of the creative part, other than possibly the editing a little bit.
Which is what I wanted to touch on just real quick. For the simple fact that I've always said that Zack Snyder knows how to make a beautiful movie. It's just I've always found that his pacing is very lacking. Whereas Joss Whedon, on the other hand, can make a movie flow like no other. So I'm thinking if he were to take all the footage that was filmed by Zack Snyder and his crew, then he may be able to take all of that footage that's already beautiful and just make it flow.
I don't know. It'll be interesting, whatever the case may be. And
that's my best case scenario for this.
So, yeah. I want it to be good. I want every movie I go to be good. I feel the same way about Wonder Woman next week. I want it to be good. I want it to be the first DC movie since maybe Man of Steel that I came out with some positive, thoughts on.
Yeah.
So.
I totally understand, yeah. One more, and this is actually a Do We Care, Not We Care Deeply, although it is sad news. The Resident Evil films are already being rebooted.
You know me, bring it on, whatever.
Yeah.
Who knows? It could be amazing.
Yeah.
It's.
I did want to read this quote, and this is from Mia Jovovich, who we all know is the main protagonist from that film series.
And before that, we all know her as the Fifth Element.
Yeah. Okay. I thought you were going with a joke there, and I just didn't know. Okay.
No.
She says, I think what made Resident Evil so special is that the people involved really loved what they were doing and really were fans of the game. I think that's ironic because those movies have nothing to do with the games. But if I don't think Paul W.S. Anderson or Mia Jovovich will be involved in this new reboot unless they're just producers. So,
well, yeah, because it's a reboot. It's not an extension. So
hopefully they stay more true to the source material, which is the Capcom games.
I finally got around to watching the latest one.
I'm sorry.
The final one. I didn't hate it. I certainly didn't like it. But of the Resident Evil movies, I actually thought it tied up that series in kind of an interesting way. I liked where it went, and I can't say that for most of them. Yeah. So, there was a little bit there for me to go, okay, cool. You wrapped it up. Nice.
That is going to also, speaking of wrap it up, it's going to wrap it up for Do We Care?
All right, let's move on to Pirates of the Caribbean. Dead men tell no tales.
Pirates had infected the seas for generations. So I vowed to eliminate them all. 'And then, there was this boy, Jack Sparrow. Follow him in. He took everything from me and filled me with rage.
Pirates, Dead Men Tell No Tales brings back Johnny Depp for his 5th turn as Jack Sparrow, this time with a couple shipmates searching for their fathers and Poseidon's trident. All right, Andrew, let's get into it. Pirates of the Caribbean, it's the 5th one. Did you like it, love it, it was okay, didn't like it, or hated it?
Did not like it.
Okay, not quite hated it?
Didn't hate it.
Okay, good.
It takes a lot for me to hate a movie.
Okay, all right. I have a feeling I'm going to defend this movie quite a bit during our review.
Okay.
But let me just say this. It was okay. I'm not going for liked it. I'm firmly in the it was okay camp.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the best one since the first one. I had more fun in this one than I've had in any of 2, 3, or 4.
No.
For me. Which one would you say is the best one? Other
number
than
one.
Other than number one, is what I'm saying.
Probably number 2. I think they've gradually gotten
But number
worse.
2 didn't have an ending. Like, because they made 2 and 3 at the same time, number 2 was like a complete waste of time, it felt like.
No, I was okay with that because they've done that, part 1 and part 2, even though it was part 2 and part 3. But I didn't mind that. And I thought that the Davy Jones aspect of it was really intriguing. I thought the Kraken was awesome. And I didn't just, there was no, I think the sense of wonder in these movies has died off for me. And I didn't mean to jump into cons already.
No, that's fine. I'm sure that's foremost on our thoughts. Since, and I know it's, I've looked since I did my review, and it's not doing very well on Rotten Tomatoes. Like, I think it's around 30 or something like that. Which I guess isn't horrible, but
Yep.
So I haven't seen a lot of good comment on it. I will say I did find parts of it enjoyable, and so we can start there with some of the pros.
Okay.
My major pro is the way this series can do kind of Rube Goldberg action kind of stuff. The guillotine scene is really clever, and really fun.
Yeah.
And we won't necessarily spoil exactly what that means here. We'll probably talk a little more in spoilers, but there was that, and there were a couple other moments where I was like, this is what I love about this franchise. Like, if there's something I love, there's actually 2 things. But the one is that it gets really inventive with its action. It's both slapstick and also clever when it wants to be. Sometimes it's just slapstick, and that I'm not, as much a fan of.
Yeah.
But when it's both slapstick and clever, it reminds me of like Jackie Chan. How he would use his environment in, kind of almost that same Rube Goldbergian way where it felt, well, yeah, there's kind of some interesting, physical stuff going on here, but it's also smart in the way that it's using its environment.
Yeah.
So I liked some of that stuff.
Yeah. I only had one pro. It's that Johnny Depp has this character nailed down, and for as many
times...
Does
it still work for you?
I was just saying, it's for as many times as I've seen him do this character, he still makes me laugh sometimes. I'm not saying that I see that, the first time I saw Johnny Depp as Sparrow, and I was blown away, like, man, he is like really bringing it.
It was so fresh. It was like you'd never seen anything like it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But now that, the jig is up and we know that, he's just, putting on the hat again, it's surprising that every now and then I can still laugh, like at the guillotine scene, or his rum drunkenness and all that stuff.
I said this in my review. I think he is best in this series when he is our court jester. I think he is best when he is not part of the central plot, but just somebody who comes along with us and makes us laugh every once in a while.
If he was a side character instead of the main focus, he would be unstoppable.
And I think he is more in this one a side character, which I loved. And really in the first one, he's kind of a side character in many ways, too. So I think it's kind of getting back to...
3 and 4, he's like...
Yeah, it's all about him. And I think that's where the series really kind of loses some of that charm. But I think he kind of gets back to it here. And I think I had it as a yellow in my review. So, kind of depending on how you feel about his performance will depend on whether you like it or not. But I liked it. I thought he was good in this one.
Yeah, it's like a spice. If you put too much of it in a dish, it's just going to ruin the entire thing. But enough of it can really make it work. So
yeah, absolutely.
That's my food analogy.
There you go. Listen, every movie can be made better with a food analogy.
Yeah. Did you have any more pros?
No. The only other thing that would be close to a pro, and maybe we'll use this to move into a con, is I feel like there's this interesting thing that can happen with franchises about this time where everybody throws their hands up and goes, well, I guess this is what it is, and that's okay. It happened with the Fast and Furious franchise with Fast 5.
You know what? We're thinking of the exact same scene.
Isn't that a great comparison?
That's the exact same.
Well,
it's the exact same scene.
No, I know the scene you're talking about. Yes, it really is kind of the exact same scene. But I'm thinking even on more a philosophical level, people threw their hands up with Fast 5 and went, oh, it knows what kind of movie it is. This is what it wants to be.
Let bombastic be bombastic.
Yeah, let's just go along for the ride. And I think that's possible to do with the Pirates of the Caribbean movies because they are something that is all their own. There's no other movie that's in this kind of piratey, old school sailing ships, kind of genre in being this kind of, ridiculous, silly action kind of thing.
The only thing I would say to that is from a physics standpoint, I thought that the first one was way more grounded, in a more realistic sense.
Okay,
of that.
fair enough. Yeah,
Whereas as the movies have gone on, they've gotten progressively more, I'm not saying that the things that they do in the first Pirates of the Caribbean are plausible or, they're pulling off some pretty crazy wire work, but at the same time, they're not doing what Fast and the Furious does where, like, physics doesn't matter anymore as long as it looks cool.
Right, yeah.
That's what the movies have gradually turned into. I think for Fast and the Furious, it kind of works. I don't know if I'd say it works the exact same way in Pirates.
You can tell it's not working, but it's interesting to me to think about why it works for one franchise and why it might not work for another.
Yeah.
Because I think there's a little bit of confirmation bias that goes on where we all know the Pirates movies have gotten worse and worse. And so we're kind of looking more for, the bad things. And sometimes that transition happens where people are like, well, maybe it's just what it is.
Yeah.
And, it is what it is. And let's just enjoy it for what it is. And it just hasn't happened with Pirates.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Because, again, they're not great. Like, this story was pretty awful if you want to get into the cons.
It's based off of a ride. There's nothing to it.
No, I mean specifically where they, like, the way they approach the story in this movie is a mess, I thought.
Okay.
So, but go into some cons.
I was really hoping with his pedigree that Javier Bardem would be this very memorable and formidable villain, but he left me with this very forgettable and lackluster performance, and I was really disappointed. Because, whenever I think of Javier Bardem, I think No Country for Old Men.
Right.
One of the greatest villains of all time is Anton Chigurh. I mean, whenever I saw the trailers, and I'm like, oh, this is possibly going to bring, the pirates back to, like, maybe there's going to be a sense of dread finally. But no, I was
what part of it is?
What?
It's not really about him. Like, he is a central villain, but he doesn't even feel really crucial to the plot.
No.
And so how are we supposed to really care about hating that character or who that character is or any kind of comeuppance that character might or might not get if he hasn't been really what we've been told to care about?
Yeah,
You know what I mean? He doesn't have any direct impact on either of the two what I felt were, again, this is part of the story problem is it wants to focus on too many of these stories and they don't have a theme that really ties them together. And so I feel like if this movie had chosen one of three main stories, which maybe we'll get into in spoilers, if it had chosen one of those three stories or themes and just like centralized on the momentum of that plot, it might have had more energy to it. Like it might have felt like you were more invested.
There are so many throwaway villains in this movie that you think, like, there's the I don't want to get into too many specifics, but there's characters where you're like, okay, maybe they can be like a side villain, and then they're just thrown away, and then there's characters who are introduced and never brought up again. It's just the poor,
and it makes it feel slow, and it makes it feel because you're always jumping around, and you just you have to jump from one thing to the other. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like it just could have been tightened up so much.
I also should say this may not matter at all because I don't think that too many people would disagree that the movie wasn't good. But I did have a really bad migraine while I was watching the movie, it kind of I had that literally in my mind, and maybe that just made me not like the movie more. I actually forgot about a pro that I forgot to write down.
Good.
If I don't mind going back to it.
No, sure, go.
I don't know how Disney does it, but their ability with their films like Marvel, not so much with Star Wars, but their ability to make characters look younger than they are, like flashbacks, it's insane how good they are at that.
Yeah, the Jack Sparrow flashback was dead on.
Yeah, like I saw Crybaby Johnny Depp, and I'm like, how did you do that? They are so good at that.
Yeah. I think there is something that's easier about somebody we recognize, as their younger self being able to do it that way. But,
Okay.
but you're right. I mean, Leia was okay, but she wasn't as good as, like, we've seen Tony Stark. We've seen, Jack Sparrow de-age.
The Kurt Russell.
Russell de-aging was amazing.
I still think that out of all of them, I think that the Tony Stark one is the most, like, mind-blowing.
And it was one of the first ones, too.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. Pretty cool stuff.
Going back to pros, within the first 10 minutes, we were talking about the ridiculous of this series.
Yeah, silliness, yeah.
I think that within the first 10 minutes of this movie, you're going to know whether or not you can handle.
Yes.
Whether or not you're going to be able to enjoy the movie or not.
I will tell you this. The crowd I was in, decent-sized crowd, maybe 3/4 full, really enjoyed it.
Ate it
Lots of laughter was, with it. I had did you ever sit next to an echoer? I had a film echoer 2 seats over. This is somebody who will repeat lines in the movie because they think they're funny or interesting. They just
really,
yeah. Have you ever had this experience?
I've never sat next to that person. So, like, say somebody says something funny, they'll just repeat it.
Yeah,
to make themselves laugh.
To make themselves laugh. Just like that through the whole movie.
Wow.
Wow.
I've never sat next to that person.
Never sat next to that person.
I would kill them. I would kill that person. They would not make it through the credits.
Well, they're not afraid to talk. The other thing an echoer will often do, and this person did this as well, is explain things to the person they're sitting with that we all already understood. And so, it's like they're just explaining the movie through the movie. Ooh. So, yeah. It's like, it's just one of those people you just want to go, look, it's not your living room. There's other people here. Just be respectful. That's all,
I would rather have a migraine than sit next to that person.
Well, I survived it.
Because I would have an aneurysm. It would kill me. It would literally kill me. I have one more con unless you had anything.
I just got my one more thing, so.
Okay. I think the biggest sin of this movie is how pointless it is. And that it doesn't progress any story within the Pirates universe. I think that is the biggest issue I have with this movie.
Now, I might have it. I mean, I think it tries too hard to progress some of the stories within the Pirates universe, but I don't feel like it does it in a way that's interesting or compelling.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it definitely, because there are so many winks and nods in characters in, from previous films. And did you stay for the after credit scene?
There was an after credit scene?
Yes. So,
no.
All right, we'll talk about that in spoilers.
Oh, here. As soon as the movie was over, I had to go to the next one immediately. So that's what happened there. So, but I guess you can tell me after we're in spoilers.
Yeah, we can talk about it in spoilers.
You know what this movie felt like to me?
Tell me about it.
It felt like a mid-season episode of a sitcom. It was just filler. That's what it felt like to me. Like, it doesn't progress any story. It's just there for the laughs.
Yeah.
And I can't stand that.
Yeah, for sure. Totally get that.
What's your one more thing?
One more thing is I have heard in some reviews since I did mine that the action was really dark and hard to make out. I did not notice that.
Were you in IMAX
I was
laser?
in IMAX laser, and it looked gorgeous to me. So I really liked how the action looked in this, but I've actually heard that as a con from some people.
I agree.
And I just want to admit that, man, when you see things in laser, you just see everything. It just looks, so much better. So
whenever the two ships, come together, and then there's that fight, you can barely see what's going on.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, you missed some fun stuff then.
There's like a giant thing, but you could barely see what it was.
Oh, interesting. That's too bad.
I have an idea of what it was, like at the front of the, so.
See, for me, that's on movie technology in some ways, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, filmmakers have to know that, and they have to be able to light things brighter so people can see. But at the same time, movie theaters are using dimmer and dimmer bulbs. They're not lighting up the screens like they should. And it's just, and then you add 3D to the top. I can't imagine watching this movie in 3D on a regular theater. You wouldn't, I mean, it would just be a black screen.
Yeah. So do you think it's more on the theaters, or do you think it's more on the production studios? Shared blame?
I think it's, You know what? It's mostly just on the progression of technology. It's not really anybody's fault. So I guess that would make it the filmmaker's fault because they need to deal with the technology that's in existence now.
Okay.
So.
My one more thing is I hope that it's all over.
Well, it's a good thing you didn't see the post-credits scene.
Man. All right.
You ready to move on to Baywatch?
Woo!
Let's talk Baywatch.
Our team is the elite of the elite. We're the heart and soul of this very beach. We protect when other people don't want to protect. And we go above and beyond.
If you want me, you can have me.
Some other time.
Lifeguard Mitch Buchanan, played by Dwayne Johnson, and a brash new recruit, played by Zac Efron, uncover a criminal plot that threatens the future of the Bay. Baywatch, based on the old TV show with lots of slow-motion beach jogging, has made its way to the big screen. Did you like it, love it? It was okay, dislike it, or hate it?
You want to go first? I went first last time.
Sure, I disliked it.
You disliked
even just
it?
a little bit. I might even be able to be convinced to, kind of put a toe in the it was okay water, but for the most part, there's enough wrong here that I disliked it. And that's frustrating to me because I was really anticipating this movie.
Yeah, I hear you.
I had it on my top 5. You know that, right? Like we talked about
Your
that. I had
most anticipated
I had
movies.
it at number 5 and my most anticipated for the summer.
That's so sad.
It is sad.
Do you think it was because of the hype you went in for it?
No, I don't watch trailers, right?
Yeah.
So
but
I don't know any of that stuff. All I know is it's Dwayne Johnson and Zac Efron, two of the most charismatic, fun actors to see on screen. They are just a blast to watch in most movies they are in. So, and if we're starting with pros, I will say I actually still liked them. I thought they were charismatic and fun.
I will say just real quick, I did like the movie enough to say I liked it. Yeah.
So even more than it was okay?
Yeah.
You liked enough to say you liked it? I'm glad. This makes me very happy. I'm excited to hear.
Barely enough to say I liked it.
So why don't you start then?
There was a lot wrong with this
Tell
movie.
me why you liked it.
Just like you said, the chemistry that Zac Efron and Dwayne Johnson have between each other is amazing. I don't know if it's because these guys have the ability to just make any scene flow with whoever they're on set with. Regardless of that, I think it totally works. These guys are great together.
They really are good.
Yeah.
And good together. And I like specifically the way Zac Efron is playing the tone of this movie. Mm-hmm. Like he's in it enough to get the cheese of it and at the same time be a real character.
Yeah.
Some of that stuff in the early stages of his character development is hilarious because of who he's playing.
Yeah.
And, even more than The Rock, I think he nails the tone. I actually think The Rock almost plays it too serious in this movie. And maybe that's just because he's too good of an actor for a movie like this, which is weird to say, but he's still really good, I think.
Yeah. I was afraid that this movie was going to have too many nods to the show and that it was just going to be full of, hey, do you remember this from the show? But it barely had any. I mean, there's a few, but the film as a whole is trying to do its own thing and not really rely on anything from the show.
Yeah.
I really appreciated that.
I mean, there were plenty of cameos and winks.
No, I'm like I said, there was a few of them, but for the whole, it was like, this isn't the show at all.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. How would you compare it to, I think that obviously the biggest comparison would be 21 Jump Street, same kind of idea.
Close enough, but 21 is way, way better.
Yeah.
So much better.
I totally agree, and I think there are specific reasons for that.
Yeah. And I'll get into that in cons real quick. Do you mind? I don't know if you had any more pros.
No, I really didn't. I mean, other than, I guess my only other pro would be there is a movie here that I think I would have loved.
Yeah.
But I don't know that it's one that most people would have loved, and so I don't blame them for not going for this movie. But it would have been the movie that focused more on the lifeguards as superheroes stuff, which that stuff was really cool. Like when there were at least 3 instances of like savings that happened. I loved those scenes. Like the way they would shoot diving into the water and that kind of stuff. That movie would have been, if that was the focus of this movie, was kind of a lifeguard superhero film rather than a raunch-com, I think I would have enjoyed that movie a lot more.
Yeah. Biggest problem I had with this movie is it was insanely formulaic. It showed no originality, and it was just a generic cookie cutter script that we've seen 100 times before.
That is so true. That was my major con as well, is such a basic plot.
Yeah.
And you can get away with a basic plot in a comedy where it's joke a minute. Here's the 21 Jump Street thing. That's a pretty basic plot, too. It's not like that's world-changing, but it's so funny.
You forget.
And it embraces so much its over-the-top craziness that you're not paying attention to that. This movie wants to take itself seriously enough that you do realize that the plot is way too basic.
Yeah.
I think.
I totally agree. And knowing that this film is going to be R-rated, I assume that there was going to be a few vulgar scenes here and there. But even still, I found that the film had, if they'd trimmed down a few of those, I would have enjoyed it a lot more. Some of them were just gross for grossness sake.
Let me make a comparison. Snatched just came out with Amy Schumer, and one of my big things was like every joke was just shock with raunch kind of joke. There was nothing clever about it. This movie has a few laughs that I think are outside of that realm. There are a few clever laughs in this movie.
Yeah.
Here and there. But it is heavily weighted towards genital humor. It is heavily weighted towards that stuff. And for me, it's like, you can do better. You know what I mean? You don't take a look at movies that are trying to appeal to the whole family, for instance, like Pixar movies like Inside Out, right?
Yeah.
Hilarious stuff in there. You can be smart and clever, and you still can make an adult movie. Like, you can make the same kind of clever humor with stuff that only adults could appreciate, right?
Yeah.
But instead, you're just trying to shock people with, genitals.
Yeah, a lot of genitals.
For sure.
Yeah. My one last thing is, actually, it's a pro. There's equal amounts of eye candy.
This is a negative for me.
Really?
And I want to get into this because I think it draws a distinction to how I view sexism, all right? One thing I said in my review is that the sexism of the show has not aged well. Like the idea of focusing on parts of women's bodies as they run in slow motion, that kind of thing. And I even said in the review, some people will look at this and go, well, they focus on the men's bodies in this too.
Yeah.
And think, well, then it's not sexist because it's both. No, it's twice as sexist. It doesn't change the fact that you are making someone's value in their physical appearance as opposed to them as a whole person. So it just because it's both men and women, that's not a balance. That's just twice as bad.
My argument against that would be that there is character development where you do care about some of these characters.
Is there?
I think for Zac Efron and Dwayne Johnson's character and...
So for the men?
No, I was about to say...
that's not sexist then.
For she was the recruit. She was the new lifeguard that joined with Zac Efron.
Yes.
You care about her and, he's not the sexy one, but, the tech guy, He was, there for, just the comedy, and you really cared about him, or at least I did.
But the movie, the focus of that kind of stuff, it just doesn't feel like it fits in kind of our modern understanding of, sexism and those kind of things. It feels like it just hasn't aged well, and I get that. We've kind of matured from.
Then no, I don't want to get into it. I disagree, but I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
That was my one last thing. I also want to know what Zac Efron's diet is.
Dude.
Is it just chicken, like grilled
just
chicken?
Protein.
Just protein?
His diet is protein and pull-ups. That's what his diet is.
It's insane.
That's so funny that we both had the same one last thing about the jiggliness of the movie, but we kind of took different angles on it. So, yeah. Anything else you wanted to mention? I know we kind of did our one last thing, but...
If don't go into this movie expecting, Schindler's List or Citizen Kane. Expect it to be a Baywatch movie. Having said that, it could have stood to be a little bit more original. Like 21 Jump Street.
I would like to know the person who goes into Baywatch expecting Schindler's List.
It's not going to change the world.
I'm going to this Holocaust drama. It's called Baywatch. Sorry to say that while you were taking a swig of water.
That's all right.
You just about spit on the microphone.
Sorry. No, I was actually about to spit on the laptop.
On the laptop. All right, good.
Yeah.
Before we continue on, heads up, if you'd like to throw a couple bucks our way every month, we'd appreciate it, and we'd love to, give you kind of some fun stuff for doing that. It's through Patreon, and the podcast network is called Studio DNA, so if you go to patreon.com/Studio DNA, you can get your own podcast feed that not only has all the podcasts that are on the Studio DNA network, but also the patron pre-shows that only show up in that podcast feed for you. For instance, on the patron pre-show today, I went over my Sift shame. So I named a bunch of movies I haven't seen that I really should have seen. If you want to know how that all turned out, you can certainly become a patron at patreon.com/StudioDNA. Okay, let's move on to the Sift Quest. This week it comes again from Twitter. If you'd like to get involved in sending us on a Sift Quest, you can do that at Twitter. You can follow Aaron Dicer, AARONDICER. Tweet at me there. Or you can email it to us if that's easier, feedback@siftpop.com. I should also say Aaron at siftpop.com works as well, if that's easier for you to remember. But however you want to get us your question, debate, whatever's on your mind, send it that way. Today's Sift Quest comes from Justin on Twitter, at jwilkie13. Here's what he asks. Hey, I'm working on a list of 100 movies I've never seen to see over the summer. Any suggestions? Preferably underseen films that make you think. I love this. I love catching up on stuff over the summer, when TV kind of calms down just a little bit and you've got a little bit of extra pop culture time. So I think this is a great thing. 100 seems that's aggressive. Like, that's a lot of movies, but
we see 100 movies in a year. And
I usually do about 170, but yeah. So 100 over just those 3 or 4 months of the summer, that's a lot, man.
Better go outside.
So let's just alternate.
Okay.
We'll give one back and forth. I think we've each chosen 5 kind of underseen, maybe a little bit thinky movies that might be a good idea. And if you have them in the chat, in the live chat, feel free to put them up there, and maybe we can throw those out to Justin as well. What do you got, Andrew?
My first one is actually one that was actually a buried treasure not too long ago, the movie Disconnect. It's about what effect social media and the internet is having on society as a whole, whether it be school bullying over the internet now, or whether it be scams or sex, all that stuff, how it affects people. And it's not too dissimilar from Crash in how it's a spider web of stories that get intertwined, but at the same time, it's you care about each story by itself, even if it wasn't connected. One of the last movies they gave a 10 out of 10 to. Very
nice. Disconnect. So you can put that one on your list.
Yes.
I'm going to throw out there The Iron Giant. I think it is way underseen. One of the greatest animated films of all time. Brad Bird's real first foray into direction. Great work in there by Harry Connick Jr. I think gives an amazing voice performance in there. Some really fun stuff and some really emotional stuff. So if you haven't seen The Iron Giant, that's one I'd recommend.
It's the only time Vin Diesel's ever made me cry.
There you go.
Yeah. My next one is foreign language film, starring Mads Mikkelsen. This also was probably just a buried treasure for me not too long ago. The Hunt, a Danish film about the ramifications of what happens whenever a child accuses you of sexually assaulting them even though you didn't. And you can prove that you didn't, but at the same time, it's such a dramatic accusation that people just want to blame you for it. And it's horrifying. One of the best films I've ever seen.
Next one I would throw out there is a movie called Digstown. Did you ever see Digstown?
Never heard of it.
So it's a boxing movie and very underseen. I think from the 90s.
Well, if it's a boxing movie, you know I'm going to see it. So.
Really compelling stuff. I really enjoyed it, and it's fun. It has one of the greatest last kind of final fight scenes in a movie that I've ever seen. It's actually been a hot minute since I've seen it too, so I may go back and rewatch it, but it's one I recommend to people, and a lot of people just haven't heard of or just kind of flew right by them. But it's called Digstown, Digstown. Louis Gossett Jr. Is in it. Lots of fun.
Nice. My next one up, animated movie, Japanese anime from Hayao Miyazaki, Howl's Moving Castle. Have you seen that
Yes,
one?
I have.
Yeah, have you seen the English dubbed version with Christian Bale and Billy Crystal?
No, I saw the subtitled version.
Oh, well, there's a English version. It has like Josh Hutcherson, Christian Bale, Billy Crystal, and I found it a lot more fascinating than because I've said this before. Whenever it comes to foreign language films, if it's live action, I always prefer to watch it in the original language. But for some reason, whenever I'm watching an anime, I prefer a dubbed version.
I actually think that makes sense because you're dealing with a voice performance that is not seen on screen.
Yeah.
So there's not as much of a disconnect between the performance and the delivery of the audio. So
there's
I think that makes sense.
There's no bad lip, mimicking or anything.
Well,
like
even if there is, you can kind of forgive it more because you can suspend your disbelief a little bit easier with an animated film.
Exactly. So you've seen it. I highly recommend it. Every single movie that I'm recommending today is in my personal top 100 movies of all time.
Oh, cool. That is not the case for me.
Okay.
In fact, The Iron Giant might be the only one that's actually in my top 100 that I'm recommending.
Next one?
My next one is The Way, Way Back. Just came out a couple years ago about a boy who goes with his family on vacation. I forget to where, somewhere near a beach. He ends up working at a water park. What's the guy's name that's at the water park? Because he's so great in the movie. One of my favorite actors, and I'm just blanking on his name.
Are you talking about Steve Carell?
No, Steve Carell is his dad, like his dad.
Sam Rockwell?
Sam Rockwell,
there
yes. Rockwell is the lifeguard. Underseen and really thoughtful and thought-provoking, emotional film that I enjoy. So if you haven't seen The Way, Way Back, I'd recommend that.
My next recommendation is the movie that made me love Jeff Nichols movies, and it is the Michael Shannon film Take Shelter.
Okay.
If you want a movie that's going to make you think, this is going to make you think, because the basic plot of this movie is this man starts to have nightmares about the end of the world slowly, or this storm that's this apocalyptic storm that's coming, and nobody believes him, obviously, and his child has an illness, so he has to decide, do I pay for her to go and get medical treatment, or do I pay to have this shelter built? So do I help her with her medical issue that I think she's deaf? I think so.
Okay.
It's like, do I help her pay to get a hearing aid, or do I help her survive? Because I know this is coming. Something in my bones is telling me it's coming. So the whole movie, you're like, is this storm that he's having these nightmares about coming? And a fascinating movie.
Cool.
Loved it.
Next one I would mention is Tom Cruise in Collateral. If you haven't seen Collateral, for some reason I think a lot of people miss that one. But it's Tom Cruise, Jamie Foxx, right? And just an incredible, fun, interestingly plotted action movie.
Yeah.
So,
do you want to guess where Collateral is in my top 100 movies of all
do you
time?
have it in your top 100?
Yeah.
That's cool. I'm going to guess 65.
It's number 8. It's
What?
my 8th favorite movie of all time.
Wow.
I love Collateral.
I guess that's also a recommend from Andrew then.
Yeah, my 8th favorite movie of all time.
It's good.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah.
But I feel like a lot of people haven't seen it, unfortunately.
I know. Oh, man. It's probably his best performance, Tom Cruise's. And, of course, Jamie Foxx blows it out of the water.
Mm-hmm.
But the dynamic between those two of those guys, it's a fascinating movie. My final recommendation is a movie I think that came out in, it's such an old movie. Bringing Up Baby. One of my favorite movies of all time. My grandma showed it to me because I was raised on Turner Classic Movies, like Bowery Boys, Marx Brothers. But this movie came out in 1938. Really old movie. Katharine Hepburn and Cary Grant. Those two together, man, they were brilliant.
Yeah.
But it's one of the most insane movies they've ever done together. Have you seen it before? Where Katharine Hepburn has a pet leopard.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's one of my favorite movies ever. Love it so much. It doesn't make you think. It's a window into a latter time.
Yeah.
And I love it so much.
Boy, man, now that you mention kind of older movies, there's like a million I want to recommend that I didn't.
Lesser known Hitchcock.
Like Hitchcock films.
Yeah,
like Rope. If you've never seen Rope, it's phenomenal. A Stranger's on a Train. You could make a quarter of your 100 Hitchcock movies. Like you really could. He's so incredible. And of course, like Singing in the Rain, if you've never seen that, you have to see that.
Harvey. It's not a Hitchcock, but somebody mentioned it. I love
Jimmy Stewart and Harvey. Yeah, the Jimmy Stewart Hitchcock stuff is amazing. The Rear Window, Vertigo,
Still
all
haven't
that
seen
stuff.
Rear Window.
Wow, yeah.
I know.
That's one you should definitely check out.
Well,
so,
we were planning on having like a a Hitchcock day.
We still need to do that.
I'm totally down for it.
Need to do that, and we'll do maybe a special Hitchcock episode after that and talk about, maybe we'll pick like 5. Maybe I'll pick 5 of my favorite lesser-known Hitchcocks.
I would love to do that.
And we'll just watch them one day and then record a podcast on them, because, yeah, he's one of my, I've talked before about how I'm not the typical, like, geek culture guy where I know, like, all the geek culture stuff, but I do have my things. Hitchcock is one of my things. It's like Hitchcock and X-Files, and then beyond that, I can lack a little bit.
Those
in
are
some
two
of the
good
knowledge.
things. Those are 2 good things.
My last one was actually Jack Reacher, because I think a lot of people skipped it because it looks stupid, but it's actually really fun.
First Jack Reacher.
Not the second one. The first one.
Yeah.
So I went on a little Tom Cruise streak there at the end.
You did. Didn't even notice that.
Yeah, I didn't either until I read them back. Thank you, Justin. We appreciate you taking us on the Sift Quest today. So
good question.
Fun
question.
Read you are some of the choices in the chat if you want. Somebody mentioned Harvey. Gone Baby Gone was mentioned. Obviously a great choice.
Yeah.
Children of Men, if you haven't seen that, is one for sure to catch up on. Somebody mentioned Take Shelter is good. Lawless, somebody mentioned. Breaking the Waves.
I think Lawless is the Tom Hardy movie that also has Shia LaBeouf and
Me, Earl, and the Dying Girl was mentioned.
Man,
Great film.
That movie made me cry.
That is
so
a great
hard.
movie. That is a great movie.
Yeah.
A few from Austin in the chat. Dope, Get Out, Juno, and The Fighter. I would specifically back Get Out and The Fighter from that list.
I'll throw out one more. Warrior.
Yes.
Man.
Warrior's great. One of my, when somebody asked my top 5 sports movies, and Warrior was one of my top 5 sports movies of all time.
And it's just because I'm an MMA guy. I don't fight in the MMA, obviously, but I've always been fascinated by it. And this look into like a kind of like the closest thing there has been to a UFC movie, but the performances in that movie are so stellar.
Yeah, it's great. I'm not a UFC fan, but I really loved that movie. That what that movie has to say about brotherhood is fabulous.
Yeah.
I mean, it's incredible. So, yeah, I definitely recommend Warrior as well.
Chocolat.
Well, there you go. Thanks again, Justin. We appreciate it. And if you would like to get your question on the Sift Quest, all you got to do is email us, feedback@siftpop.com, or you can tweet me at Aaron Dicer. On to our buried treasure. Andrew, what do you got that you want to let people know about from the area of pop culture? Could be anything.
A Hulu original series that we've been discussing possibly picking up on this show. I started watching it a couple days ago. The Handmaid's Tale.
It's definitely in my list of ones I'm trying to figure out a way to catch up on.
It is a rough show to watch.
That's what everybody says, and that's why it hasn't floated to the top of my list yet.
It is a hard... I mean, it's so good, but it is so uncomfortably, like, horrific what is going on in this show.
Yeah.
From a societal standpoint, like, to think if we were to ever get to this point is terrifying.
Yeah.
But the performances are phenomenal. The concept is so original because I don't think anybody... This is a show that could never have been made 5 years ago.
Yeah.
6 years ago, the show could never have been made.
How many episodes in are you?
3.
Okay.
So
I think there's 6 out now.
There's 6 out now, but like I said, it's so... Man, it's so... I don't even know how to say it. It's
and I get it.
horrific to watch. You don't want to... You can't binge watch it. You got to take a break. You're like, wow.
That's another thing I've heard is you have to watch one episode at a time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that. There are some things that are hard to watch, but also good to recommend, and I understand that. So
definitely not family friendly, but it's...
Well, I mean, because of the content itself.
Exactly.
Is even, yeah, for sure.
What do you got?
Mine is also not family friendly. I finally got around to seeing Free Fire, the movie that came out, Ben Wheatley's new film. Basically, it's about a gun exchange gone wrong. And it's an interesting look at what kind of a different take on a shoot 'em up kind of movie. I did not love it. It certainly has major flaws, but it is interesting and kind of feels like it's a hybrid of Tarantino. It's a combination of Tarantino and Guy Ritchie in some ways. It just kind of has that sense of humor to it. Armie Hammer's in it.
Yeah, I was while you were talking, I was looking at this cast list, and I'm like, how have I not heard of this movie?
Yeah. So I mention it because I know there are a lot of people who would really love it, even though I just kind of liked it, maybe.
Yeah.
It has some flaws in it for me that it didn't quite gel together, but it might be right up your alley. So if you haven't heard about Free Fire, it might be one to check out down the road.
It looks like fascinating. I mean, this cast is remarkable.
I think Brie Larson was cast before she blew up. It's great timing for them, to be able to have Brie Larson and some of those other people in here. So
yeah, we got Captain Marvel in our movie. No big deal.
That's very true. We did it, Andrew.
Hey,
we did the podcast.
Huzzahs!
Woot woot. Thank you so much for joining us today for Siftpop. It is part of the Studio DNA podcast network. You can find out more about other live and later shows on the network by following the feed at mixler.com/studiodna. Huge thanks to Andrew for hanging out with me again this week.
Aww.
You can check out our stuff. Andrew's at Flick Freaks on YouTube. Just hit 42,000 subscribers, or 44. Which was
42.
it? 42,000 subscribers.
The big 420.
Congratulations, man. I am inching closer to 2,000. I'm almost there.
Hey, we're gonna have a party when this happens.
That's right, we are. Maybe that's what I was thinking. Together we have almost 44,000.
Yeah, that's what it is.
You can check my stuff out at Your Movie Friend on YouTube, or you can also look elsewhere online. Just search for Aaron Dicer. You can find a lot of my stuff. We've also got a Patreon going on at patreon.com/StudioDNA. Support starts at $3 a month. Comes with some pretty fun perks. And there are lots of ways to connect with the show. If you want to leave some feedback, you can go to SoundCloud. You can tweet at us in your iTunes comments, or you can email us, feedback@siftpop.com. And finally, if you are having a good time listening to this podcast, I bet your movie-loving friends would like it too. Make sure you let them know about it, and that listening is much easier than escaping an execution via cannonball. Spoiler chat for this week's movie should be up in your podcast feed next, and we will see you back next week for maybe some talk on Wonder Woman. I don't even know that I know the Wonder Woman theme.
That was it.
I know. That's what I was saying. You were doing it, and I was like, I don't even know that I knew that theme. Immediately, I wanted to go to Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman does whatever a Wonder Woman does. But that's Spider Pig. So
that's Spider Pig. Yeah, that's exactly.